The massive alien ships hung in space like dark metal mountains against the stars. 12 enormous vessels floated at the edge of Earth's solar system, each one bigger than any city humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that reflected no light, and weapons that could crack planets pointed directly at the small blue world that housed 8 billion human souls. Ambassador Zeth Kara stood on the bridge of the lead dreadnought, his tall purple form casting shadows across the command center. His forearms moved gracefully as he activated the communication array that would deliver his message to the primitive world below. The Valonian Empire had conquered 47 systems in the past century, and Earth would simply be number 48. Attention, inhabitants of the third planet. Zeth Kara's voice boomed across all human communication frequencies. I am Ambassador Zeth Kara of the Galactic Union Council. Your species has been deemed unfit for self-governance. You have 7 standard galactic days to surrender your homeworld completely. All humans will be relocated to designated colony worlds where you will be properly supervised. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your planet. The transmission ended with a cold finality that sent chills down the spines of every human who heard it. In bunkers and government buildings across Earth, emergency meetings began immediately. The president of the United Earth Federation, a calm man named Harrison who had led humanity through 3 wars, sat at the head of a long table surrounded by his most trusted advisors. How many ships are we looking at exactly? Harrison asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Admiral Kate Sullivan, a woman who had spent 30 years building Earth's space navy from nothing, pulled up holographic displays showing the alien fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, sir. Each one is approximately 15 kilometers long and 8 kilometers wide. Our scanners show weapon systems that could turn our entire moon into dust in under an hour. General Marcus Stone, the head of Earth's military forces, shook his head grimly. We have 47 ships in our entire fleet, Mr. President. Our biggest vessel is barely 2 kilometers long. This isn't a fight we can win through conventional means. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the hopelessness of their situation. Earth's navy had been built to fight pirates and protect mining operations in the asteroid belt. Nobody had seriously considered that aliens might arrive with the intention of enslaving the entire human race. Dr. Lisa Warren, Earth's chief scientist, spoke up from her seat near the far end of the table. We could try negotiating. Perhaps if we offer them our scientific knowledge or mining rights to certain systems, they might reconsider complete subjugation. Absolutely not, said Secretary of Defense Paul Clark. The moment we start negotiating from a position of weakness, we've already lost. These aliens think we're primitive and helpless. Any attempt at diplomacy will only confirm their beliefs. As the debate continued around the table, one man sat quietly in the corner, studying tactical displays on his personal tablet. Captain Jake Morrison was younger than most of the people in the room, but his reputation preceded him. He had fought in the Mars colonial wars, where a small group of human settlers had held off a much larger force of corporate mercenaries for 6 months using nothing but determination and creative tactics. Morrison had short, brown hair and calm blue eyes that missed nothing. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's Deep Space Command, with only a few ribbons indicating his service record. Most people in the room knew that those ribbons represented actions that had saved thousands of lives. But Morrison never talked about his past victories. Captain Morrison, President Harrison said, noticing the young officer's silence. You've been awfully quiet. What are your thoughts on our situation? Morrison looked up from his tablet and met the president's eyes. Sir, I think we're approaching this problem from the wrong direction. We keep talking about negotiation and surrender as if those are our only options. What other options do we have? Admiral Sullivan asked. Our entire fleet couldn't scratch the paint on one of those alien ships. Morrison stood up and walked to the main display screen. He pointed at one particular ship in the alien formation, a sleek vessel that looked different from the others. That ship there is the USS Defiant, our newest experimental warship. It's equipped with quantum torpedo arrays and adaptive armor plating that we've never field tested. The aliens have never seen our technology in action. 1 ship against 12? General Stone laughed bitterly. That's not tactics, Captain. That's suicide. Maybe, Morrison said calmly. But it's also the last thing they'll expect. The aliens think we're going to either surrender or send diplomats to beg for mercy. They're not prepared for a direct military response from what they consider a primitive species. President Harrison leaned forward in his chair. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? Morrison turned to face the room, his expression serious but determined. I'm proposing that we don't send diplomats at all. We send me alone aboard the Defiant. Let me show these aliens what happens when they threaten human families. The room erupted in arguments and objections, but Morrison continued speaking. The aliens are operating under the assumption that we're weak and cowardly. Every species they've conquered has probably followed the same pattern. Negotiate, surrender, accept subjugation. But humans don't work that way. When we're cornered, we fight harder, not softer. Dr. Warren shook her head. Jake, this is madness. One ship cannot possibly defeat an entire fleet. I'm not planning to defeat their entire fleet, Morrison replied. I'm planning to change their perception of what humanity represents. Right now, they see us as another weak species to be enslaved. After I'm done, they'll see us as something far more dangerous. Admiral Sullivan studied the tactical displays more carefully. The Defiant does have some advantages. Our quantum weapons are based on principles that alien science hasn't encountered, and the adaptive armor system could potentially deflect energy weapons we've never seen before. This is insane, Secretary Clark protested. We're talking about sending one man against 12 dreadnoughts. It's not a battle plan, it's a death sentence. Morrison smiled grimly. Secretary Clark, with respect. You're still thinking like a diplomat. I'm thinking like a human who's been told that his species isn't good enough to govern itself. The aliens want to see what Earth is really made of? Let's show them. President Harrison was quiet for a long moment, weighing the options before him. Finally, he spoke. Captain Morrison, if we approve this plan, you understand that you'll be facing impossible odds with no backup and no hope of rescue. Yes, sir, Morrison replied without hesitation. But I also understand that sometimes impossible odds are exactly what humans need to show the galaxy who we really are. The president looked around the table at his advisors, seeing resignation mixed with desperate hope in their faces. Earth had 7 days to respond to the alien ultimatum. They could spend those days preparing for surrender, or they could spend them preparing to show the galaxy that humans had never learned how to give up. Very well. Captain Morrison, President Harrison said finally, Earth's response to the Galactic Union Council will be delivered by you aboard the USS Defiant. Show them what humanity is capable of. The USS Defiant cut through space like a silver arrow aimed at the heart of the alien fleet. Captain Jake Morrison sat alone in the command chair of Earth's most advanced warship, watching the massive enemy vessels grow larger on his main screen. The ship around him hummed with power from experimental systems that most humans had never seen, let alone understood. Morrison had spent the past 3 days studying every piece of intelligence Earth possessed about alien technology and tactics. The Valonian Empire relied on overwhelming firepower and coordinated attacks that had crushed dozens of civilizations. Their ships were built like floating fortresses, designed to absorb massive amounts of damage while delivering devastating strikes against planetary targets. But Morrison had noticed something interesting in the tactical reports. Every alien victory followed the same pattern. The enemy would surrender after losing a few ships, usually before the aliens had to reveal their full capabilities. No species had ever forced the Galactic Union Council to adapt their strategies or think creatively about combat. That was about to change. The communication console beeped as an incoming transmission reached the Defiant. Morrison activated the audio pickup and heard the cold voice of Ambassador Zethkara filling his bridge. Unknown human vessel, you are approaching a restricted military zone. Turn back immediately or you will be destroyed without further warning. Morrison smiled and opened a channel to respond. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Federation. I'm here as Earth's official representative to discuss your ultimatum with whoever's in charge of your fleet. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. Morrison could imagine the confusion spreading through the alien command structure as they tried to understand why Earth had sent a single small warship instead of diplomats begging for mercy. Admiral Korath of the Valonian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display showing the approaching human vessel. His scaled green skin gleamed under the harsh lighting as he turned to his tactical officer with obvious irritation. What are the specifications of that ship? Korath demanded. It appears to be approximately 2 kilometers in length, Admiral. Our sensors detect standard human technology signatures, But there are some energy readings that don't match our database of known Earth capabilities. Korath had conquered 17 worlds during his military career. He had seen desperate species try many different tactics to avoid subjugation, but sending a single ship to negotiate had never been one of them. The gesture struck him as either pure stupidity or incredible arrogance. "Open a channel to the human vessel," Korath ordered. Morrison's face appeared on the alien bridge's main screen. The human looked young for a military commander, with calm blue eyes that showed no fear despite facing impossible odds. Korath had expected to see terror or desperation, but Morrison appeared completely relaxed. "I am Admiral Korath of the Valonian Imperial Fleet," the alien commander announced. "You have entered a combat zone during active subjugation proceedings. Surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be taken into custody." Morrison leaned back in his command chair and studied the alien on his screen. "I appreciate the introduction, Admiral. I am here to deliver Earth's official response to your ultimatum. We've decided not to surrender." The alien bridge fell silent. Korath's 4 eyes narrowed as he processed what the human had just said. "You have decided not to surrender? Do you comprehend the firepower currently aimed at your homeworld? I understand you have 12 big ships and some very impressive weapons," Morrison replied casually. "What I don't think you understand is what happens when you threaten human families. We don't negotiate with bullies, and we definitely don't relocate to make room for conquerors." Commander Lyra of the science vessel watched the exchange from her own bridge with growing fascination. The Centauri had joined the Galactic Union Council centuries ago through peaceful negotiation, but she had observed dozens of forced subjugations. No species had ever responded to superior firepower with such calm defiance. "This human shows no signs of fear," she reported to her science team. "His psychological profile indicates either complete confidence in his abilities or total detachment from reality." Back on the flagship, Admiral Korath was growing impatient with what he perceived as human foolishness. "Captain Morrison, you command a single vessel against my entire fleet. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields, and your armor cannot withstand our firepower. This conversation serves no purpose." Morrison's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I think you're making some assumptions about human technology that might not be accurate. Before this conversation goes any further, I want to offer you and your fleet one chance to withdraw peacefully from our solar system." The alien bridge erupted in what Morrison assumed was laughter, based on the harsh clicking sounds coming from several different species. Admiral Korath's scaled face showed what might have been amusement. "You are offering us the chance to withdraw?" Korath asked. "One human ship is threatening the entire Valonian Imperial Fleet." "That's exactly what I'm doing," Morrison confirmed. "Earth doesn't want a war, but we're not going to be pushed around either. Take your ships and leave our space, and nobody has to get hurt." Korath had heard enough. This human was either insane or playing some kind of elaborate bluff that served no logical purpose. Either way, the conversation had gone on long enough. "Captain Morrison, I will demonstrate why your threats are meaningless. 3 of my escort vessels will disable your ship and bring you aboard for interrogation. Perhaps after you see our capabilities firsthand, you will encourage your species to be more reasonable." Morrison watched his tactical display as 3 alien warships broke formation and began moving toward the Defiant. Each escort was nearly as large as his entire ship, with enough firepower to level a city. Under normal circumstances, facing 3 alien warships simultaneously would be suicide. But Morrison wasn't operating under normal circumstances. The Defiant carried experimental quantum torpedo arrays that had never been tested in actual combat. The adaptive armor plating used technology based on principles that alien science had never encountered. Most importantly, Morrison was fighting with the desperation of a man defending his entire species. "Admiral Korath," Morrison said calmly as the enemy ships approached, "I want you to remember that I offered you the chance to leave peacefully." Morrison cut the communication channel and turned his attention to the weapons console. The Defiant's experimental systems powered up with a low hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Quantum energy levels climbed beyond anything the aliens had ever detected, while adaptive armor plates shifted and reconfigured themselves in preparation for combat. The 3 alien escorts continued their approach, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Their crews had participated in dozens of planetary subjugations and had never encountered serious resistance from primitive species. That was about to change in a very dramatic way. Morrison's fingers moved across the weapon's control panel, with the precision of a man who had spent years preparing for this exact moment. The quantum torpedo tubes loaded with experimental warheads that contained more destructive power than anything Earth had ever created. "Computer, target the lead escort vessel and prepare to fire on my command," Morrison said quietly. The alien ships were now close enough that he could see their weapon ports opening in preparation for their attack. Morrison knew that once the shooting started, there would be no going back. Earth's fate now rested entirely on his ability to prove that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The first quantum torpedo left the USS Defiant like a streak of blue lightning. Morrison watched on his tactical display as the experimental weapon crossed the distance between his ship and the lead alien escort in just under 2 seconds. The aliens had been expecting conventional projectile weapons, or energy beams that they could deflect with their shields. They were not prepared for quantum warheads that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The torpedo struck the alien vessel's shields and simply passed through them as if they weren't there. The explosion that followed lit up space like a miniature star, tearing through the escort's hull and detonating its reactor core. In the span of 3 heartbeats, a warship that had terrorized dozens of worlds became an expanding cloud of superheated debris. Admiral Korath stared at his tactical display in complete shock. His instruments showed that the human weapon had somehow bypassed their shields entirely, but that was theoretically impossible according to every principle of physics the Galactic Union Council understood. How did their weapon penetrate our defensive screens? Korath demanded from his tactical officer. "I don't know, sir. Our shields registered no impact whatsoever. The weapon appeared to ignore our defenses completely." Morrison didn't give the aliens time to analyze what had happened. The moment the first escort exploded, he was already maneuvering the Defiant toward the second target. The alien ships were trying to spread out to avoid giving him easy shots. But Morrison had studied their tactical doctrine for months. He knew exactly how they would react. The second escort fired its main weapons at the Defiant, sending massive energy beams that should have vaporized any human vessel. Instead, the beam struck Morrison's adaptive armor plating and simply disappeared. The experimental armor absorbed the energy and redirected it into the ship's own power systems, actually making the Defiant stronger with each attack. Morrison fired 2 more quantum torpedoes in rapid succession. The first one missed as the alien ship tried to evade, but the second caught the escort amidships and split it cleanly in half. The alien crew never had time to send a distress signal before their ship's atmosphere vented into space. The third escort vessel immediately began retreating toward the main fleet, its captain realizing that they were facing technology far beyond anything in their experience. But Morrison wasn't finished demonstrating human capabilities. He pushed the Defiant's engines beyond their rated capacity and pursued the fleeing alien ship. Commander Lyra watched the battle from her science vessel with growing amazement. Her sensors were recording energy signatures that violated several fundamental laws of physics, as the Galactic Union understood them. The human ship was somehow drawing power from enemy attacks and converting matter into energy at rates that should have been impossible. "Commander, we need to transmit these readings to the Union Council immediately," her science officer reported. "This species possesses technology that could revolutionize our understanding of warfare." "Not yet," Lyra replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "I want to see how far this human can push their capabilities before we report anything." Morrison caught the retreating escort just as it reached the edge of the main alien formation. Instead of firing another torpedo, he did something that shocked every alien observer. He rammed the Defiant directly into the escort's engine section at full velocity. The collision should have destroyed both ships, but Morrison had timed it perfectly. The Defiant's adaptive armor absorbed the impact and transferred the kinetic energy throughout the ship's hull. The alien escort, built for long-range bombardment rather than close combat, crumpled like paper around Morrison's reinforced bow. Morrison pulled the Defiant free from the wreckage and opened communication channels to the entire alien fleet. His face appeared on every bridge screen simultaneously, showing calm blue eyes that held no fear despite being surrounded by enemies. "Admiral Korath, I just destroyed 3 of your warships in under 5 minutes, Morrison announced. "I offered you the chance to leave peacefully, but you decided to test human resolve instead. Now you're learning what that really means." The alien admiral was no longer amused by human arrogance. His tactical displays showed 3 escort vessels completely destroyed by weapons that his science teams couldn't explain or defend against. The human ship showed no signs of damage despite being hit by enough firepower to level a mountain. "This is impossible," Korath muttered. "No single vessel can withstand the combined firepower of 3 warships." Morrison heard the comment through the open communication channel and smiled grimly. "Admiral, you're still thinking about this fight in terms of conventional warfare. Humans stopped fighting conventionally the moment you threatened our families." Morrison began flying the Defiant in patterns that defied every tactical manual ever written. He used the debris from destroyed alien ships as cover, bouncing quantum torpedoes off asteroid fragments to hit targets from impossible angles. When 6 heavy cruisers moved to surround him, Morrison flew directly through the center of their formation at maximum velocity, firing in all directions simultaneously. The alien crews watched in horror as their carefully coordinated attack formation became a death trap for their own ships. Morrison's quantum weapons ignored their shields completely, while his adaptive armor turned their return fire into additional power for his own systems. Every shot they fired at him made him stronger and faster. "This human fights like a madman," one alien captain reported to Admiral Korath. "He's using tactics that should result in his own destruction. But somehow he's turning our advantages against us." Morrison destroyed 2 more heavy cruisers by flying between them and firing torpedoes that locked onto their quantum signatures. The weapons followed the alien ships through every evasive maneuver before detonating inside their reactor cores. A 3rd cruiser tried to ram the Defiant in desperation, only to watch Morrison's ship absorb the impact and redirect the energy into a devastating point-blank torpedo strike. By the time the battle entered its 2nd hour, Morrison had destroyed 8 alien warships without taking any significant damage. His voice continued to broadcast across all frequencies, providing commentary that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. "This is what happens when you pick a fight with humans," Morrison declared after destroying another heavy cruiser. "We don't surrender, we don't negotiate, and we definitely don't relocate to make room for bullies." Admiral Korath found himself facing a situation that no Galactic Union commander had ever encountered. A single enemy vessel was systematically destroying his fleet, using weapons and tactics that violated every principle of space combat. Worse yet, the human pilot seemed to be getting stronger and more dangerous with each engagement. "Sir, we've lost over half our combat vessels," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic. "This human ship is unlike anything we've ever faced." Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system once more. "Admiral Korath, I'm going to give you one more chance to withdraw your fleet. Take your remaining ships and leave our solar system now, or I'll show you what happens when humans stop playing around." The alien admiral stared at his tactical display, watching the debris fields that had once been his escort vessels and heavy cruisers. For the first time in his military career, Korath was facing an enemy that seemed to grow more dangerous the longer the fight continued. Morrison waited patiently for an answer, his finger hovering over the weapons console as he prepared to continue his demonstration of human determination. Admiral Korath's patience finally snapped as he watched Morrison's ship dance between the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. 8 warships destroyed by a single human vessel was beyond embarrassing. It was impossible. The alien admiral's green scales darkened with rage as he made a decision that would change everything. "Power up the planet killer," Korath commanded his weapons officer. The bridge crew turned to stare at their admiral in shock. The planet killer weapon was reserved for destroying worlds that refused to surrender after conventional subjugation failed. It had never been used against a single enemy ship and certainly never as a threat during active combat. "Sir, are you certain?" the weapons officer asked hesitantly. "The energy signature will be detected throughout this entire star system." "Do it now," Korath snarled. "I want that human to watch his homeworld die." Deep within the alien dreadnought, massive energy conduits began channeling power toward a weapon capable of cracking planets in half. The device required several minutes to charge fully, but once activated it could destroy any world within its targeting range. Korath intended to aim it directly at the blue planet that had spawned this impossible human warrior. Morrison's sensors detected the massive energy buildup immediately. His tactical computer analyzed the readings and displayed a warning that made his blood run cold. The aliens were preparing to fire a planet-destroying weapon at Earth itself. Morrison opened a communication channel to the alien flagship, his voice deadly calm despite the rage building inside him. "Admiral Korath, I'm reading massive energy signatures from your ship. If you're preparing to fire on Earth, you should reconsider that decision very carefully." Korath's face appeared on Morrison's main screen, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Captain Morrison, you have demonstrated that human technology is more advanced than we initially believed. However, your homeworld remains defenseless against our ultimate weapon. Surrender immediately or watch 8 billion of your species die." Morrison stared at the alien admiral for a long moment, his blue eyes growing colder than the vacuum of space. When he spoke again, his voice carried a tone that sent chills through every alien who heard it. "Admiral, you just made the biggest mistake in the history of your species." Morrison cut the communication and turned his attention to the Defiant's power systems. The experimental reactor that powered his ship was designed with safety limits that prevented dangerous overloads. But those safety limits assumed normal combat conditions, not a situation where Earth itself was under direct threat. Morrison began manually overriding every safety protocol on his ship. Warning alarms blared throughout the Defiant as power levels climbed far beyond anything the vessel was designed to handle. The quantum torpedo arrays began drawing energy directly from the main reactor, while the adaptive armor system converted every available resource into additional shielding. Commander Lyra watched from her science vessel as energy readings from the human ship climbed to levels that should have been impossible for such a small vessel. Her instruments detected quantum fluctuations that threatened to tear holes in space itself. "Commander, that human ship is generating more power than some small stars," her science officer reported with obvious fear. "If his reactor fails, the explosion could damage ships throughout this entire region." "He's not planning to let his reactor fail," Lyra realized with growing horror. "He's turning his entire ship into a guided weapon." Morrison's voice echoed across all communication frequencies as he accelerated the Defiant toward the alien dreadnought at maximum velocity. "You want to see what humans do when you threaten everything we love? Let me show you." The USS Defiant shot forward like a missile aimed at the heart of the alien fleet. Morrison had pushed every system beyond its breaking point, creating energy levels that turned his ship into a flying bomb with enough power to crack a moon. The quantum weapons arrays overloaded and began firing continuously, creating a stream of destruction that cleared a path directly toward Korath's flagship. Admiral Korath watched in disbelief as the human ship bore down on his dreadnought with the fury of an entire species. The planet killer weapon was still charging, but it would not be ready to fire for another 2 minutes. The human would reach them in less than 1. "All defensive batteries, concentrate fire on that ship," Korath ordered desperately. The alien dreadnought unleashed everything it had at the approaching human vessel. Energy beams that could melt continents struck Morrison's adaptive armor and were absorbed into his overloaded power systems. Missile barrages that could level cities were destroyed by his quantum torpedo streams before they could reach their target. Morrison felt the Defiant shuddering around him as the ship absorbed punishment that would have destroyed an entire fleet. But the experimental armor held, converting enemy fire into additional energy that made his approach even faster and more devastating. "Admiral Korath," Morrison broadcast as he closed the final distance to the alien flagship, "I want you to remember something when you meet your ancestors. Earth didn't send diplomats because we don't negotiate with bullies. We sent a human, and that's all we needed." Korath realized with growing terror that the human pilot intended to ram his ship directly into the dreadnought's main weapon array. The impact would destroy both vessels, but it would also prevent the planet killer from firing and save the human homeworld. "Wait," Korath transmitted frantically. "We can negotiate. The Galactic Union Council will withdraw from your system immediately. There's no need for this destruction." Morrison's response was cold and final. "You had your chance to negotiate, Admiral. You chose to threaten my family instead." The USS Defiant struck the alien dreadnought's forward section like a meteorite hitting a planet. Morrison had timed the impact perfectly, aiming for the exact center of the planet killer weapon's focusing array. The collision released all the energy he had built up during his suicidal charge, creating an explosion that could be seen from Earth's surface. The alien flagship's forward third simply vanished in a burst of light that briefly outshone the local star. Admiral Korath and his entire command crew died instantly as the planet killer weapon exploded from within, taking the most powerful ship in the Galactic Union fleet with it. Morrison died as he had lived, protecting the people he cared about from those who would do them harm. His last transmission, recorded by every surviving alien vessel, became the most famous words in galactic history. Humans don't surrender. We adapt, we overcome, and we make sure our enemies remember why they should have stayed home. The remaining alien ships drifted in stunned silence, staring at the expanding debris field where their flagship and the lone human warrior had destroyed each other. In less than 3 hours, one man in one ship had reduced their mighty fleet to half its original strength and eliminated their supreme commander. For the first time in galactic history, the Galactic Union Council was forced to confront the possibility that they had encountered a species more dangerous than themselves. The silence that followed Morrison's sacrifice stretched across space like a heavy blanket. The surviving alien ships drifted motionless among the debris fields that had once been their mighty fleet, their crews struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. In the span of 3 hours, one human had destroyed half their vessels and eliminated their supreme commander using nothing but determination and experimental technology. Commander Lyra of the Centauri science vessel was the first to break the stunned silence. She activated her communication array and addressed the remaining alien commanders with a voice that carried new respect for the species they had come to subjugate. All surviving vessels, this is Commander Lyra of the Scientific Division. I am calling an immediate emergency council to discuss our situation. Within minutes, the faces of 6 different alien commanders appeared on screens throughout the remaining fleet. Each one showed the same expression of shock and disbelief. They had come to Earth expecting easy conquest of a primitive species, but instead they had encountered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare and determination. Captain Vex of the Heavy Cruiser Squadron spoke first, his purple tentacles writhing with nervous energy. That human pilot fought like nothing we've ever encountered. He turned his own ship into a weapon and sacrificed himself to protect his homeworld. More than that, added Commander Thane of the Destroyer Wing, he demonstrated technology that our science teams cannot explain or counter. Those quantum weapons passed through our shields as if they didn't exist. Commander Lyra accessed her scientific data and transmitted detailed readings to the other vessels. I've been analyzing the human ship's capabilities throughout the entire engagement. Their adaptive armor system converts enemy attacks into additional power, making them stronger with each hit. Their quantum weapons exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing them to bypass conventional defenses. The alien commanders studied the data with growing unease. Every principle of space combat they had relied on for centuries was useless against human technology. Worse yet, the psychological profile of Captain Morrison suggested that his behavior was typical for his species when defending their families. We need to contact the Galactic Union Council immediately, Captain Vex declared. This species represents a threat level we've never encountered before. No, Commander Lyra said firmly. First, we need to make a decision about our immediate situation. We have 6 ships remaining, facing a species that just demonstrated they're willing to die rather than surrender. Do we continue this subjugation attempt or do we withdraw and report our findings? The question hung in space like an unexploded bomb. Every alien commander knew that retreat would mean the end of their military careers. But continuing the attack against Earth seemed like suicide after what they had witnessed. Commander Thane finally spoke the words that everyone was thinking. That human didn't just destroy our ships. He destroyed our entire understanding of how primitive species are supposed to behave. If the rest of his kind fight with even half his determination, we don't have enough firepower in this entire fleet to subjugate them. Captain Vex nodded grimly. I've conquered 12 worlds during my career, and I've never seen anything like what happened here today. Captain Morrison fought with the fury of an entire civilization concentrated into one man. Then we're in agreement, Commander Lyra announced. I'm calling for an immediate withdrawal from this star system. All vessels will return to Union space to report our findings to the Council. The decision was unanimous. Within an hour, the surviving alien ships had formed up into a retreat formation and began the journey back to Galactic Union territory. Behind them, they left debris fields that would orbit Earth's sun for centuries as a reminder of the day humanity proved they were not a species to be trifled with. News of the battle spread through galactic civilization faster than anyone had expected. The story of one human pilot destroying half an alien fleet in defense of his homeworld became legend within days. Species that the Galactic Union had been considering for conquest suddenly found themselves granted autonomous status, as the Council desperately tried to avoid creating more human heroes. On Earth, President Harrison stood before a joint session of the World Congress to address humanity's response to their first contact with alien civilization. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation, all of them struggling to process the events of the past week. Captain Jake Morrison gave his life to prove that Earth will never bow to foreign conquerors, President Harrison announced to thunderous applause. His sacrifice has earned humanity a place among the stars, but more importantly, it has shown the galaxy that we are not a species that can be easily intimidated. The president paused to look out at the assembled representatives before continuing. The aliens came here expecting to find a weak civilization ready for subjugation. Instead, they found Jake Morrison, and through him they discovered what human determination really means. Today I am announcing the Jake Morrison Deep Space Defense Initiative, which will ensure that Earth is never again threatened by those who mistake our peaceful nature for weakness. Admiral Kate Sullivan took the podium next to outline humanity's new military strategy. We will honor Captain Morrison's sacrifice by building a fleet worthy of his legacy. Every ship we launch will carry his name and his message. Humans don't surrender, we adapt, we overcome, and we protect what matters. Construction began immediately. On the first ship of Earth's new deep space defense fleet, the USS Morrison was designed using the experimental technology that had made the Defiant so effective, but scaled up for fleet operations. Within 2 years, humanity launched 12 warships that incorporated quantum weapons and adaptive armor systems. The Galactic Union Council, meanwhile, was dealing with the political fallout from their failed subjugation attempt. Species throughout the galaxy had heard about Captain Morrison's last stand, and many of them began demanding the same treatment that Earth had received. The Council found themselves negotiating trade agreements and mutual defense treaties instead of planning conquest operations. Commander Lyra was promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of the Union's new Diplomatic Contact Division. Her first official act was to establish formal relations with Earth, offering technology exchanges and cultural cooperation. The message she transmitted to President Harrison was simple and direct. The Galactic Union Council extends its formal recognition of Earth as a sovereign civilization with full territorial rights. We would be honored to establish peaceful relations with a species that has proven their dedication to freedom and self-determination. 3 years after Morrison's sacrifice, Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Morrison as it completed its first patrol of the outer solar system. Earth's space was now protected by a fleet that carried the legacy of one man's determination to defend his family. The ship's communication officer approached Sullivan with a message from deep space. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown alien vessel requesting permission to enter our system for peaceful trade negotiations." Sullivan smiled as she looked out at the stars that no longer held any threat for humanity. "Grant them permission to approach, but remind them that Earth is defended by humans who learned from Jake Morrison that sometimes the best diplomacy comes from the barrel of a quantum torpedo." The galaxy had learned that Earth didn't send diplomats when threatened because they didn't need to negotiate. They sent human heroes instead, and that made all the difference.